Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Anatomy Readiness Review Resources presentation. My name is Dr. Hideki Nakazono. I'm the Director of Tutoring Services and the Writing Center for the university. The reason for my joining you with this presentation today is simple. Everyone present is familiar with the subject of anatomy, so you all also know that there is a lot to know when it comes to the topic. Certainly more than we could go through in the span of this short presentation. Instead, the purpose of this refresher is to provide you with a set of resources that you'll need to access and familiarize yourself with in order to be successful where anatomy is involved in your courses. We've learned that many students are surprised by the pace and expectations that exist in their graduate level courses right at the outset of their programs. My hope is to provide you with some materials so that you can start your courses and the program ahead of the curve rather than playing from behind. To that end, let's jump into the slide deck and begin by taking a look at our intended learning outcomes for this presentation. This slide deck is embedded with links to streamline your review, so it has been included in the Tutoring Services course-based review materials page of your MyUSA student portal. I'll show you all where you can find that page a bit later in the presentation. The learning outcomes for this presentation are to provide you with a list of topics to review before your classes, provide you with resources you can access in order to conduct your review, and provide you with information about some of the upcoming opportunities that you will need to take advantage of in addition to your classes so that you'll be successful in your classes, as well as some support resources that will be available to you throughout your time in the program. Anatomy exists in foundational courses in the health sciences, and this is reflected in several programs at the University of St. Augustine. Students' performance where anatomy is concerned often sets the tone for whether or not they achieve success in their programs. Now, you have all demonstrated through success at your previous institutions, as well as through your acceptance into the program you're now enrolled in, that you're certainly capable of succeeding in your programs. But with that being said, it's worth noting that the level of effort you made as an undergraduate, which led to a successful outcome in those programs, will very likely need to be increased for you to reach that same level of success as a graduate student. The expectations that come with attending graduate school and practicing as clinicians in the field are higher than you've experienced before. I don't bring this up to startle anyone. I'm guessing that most of you were already expecting an elevation of expectations of the sort. After all, many of you are pursuing the lofty goal of becoming doctors. Rather, my intention in mentioning this is to encourage everyone to get started on the right foot. Students are far more successful when they jump off to a strong start than when they find themselves constantly playing catch-up. And that is really the purpose of this presentation, to make sure that you don't fall into the common pitfall of easing into the program and then struggling throughout. But know that we are here to support you from the outset. I'm going to go through several resources that have been designed to put you in the best place to succeed in the program. Based on what I've seen in the past, many of you will see the support resources in this presentation and wonder how important it will be to engage with them, especially right at the outset. I'm here to tell you that it is very important. If I were you, I wouldn't just take my word for it either. So here's some data that speaks to what I'm talking about. Among the physical therapy students included in the data sample investigated, students with a cumulative GPA of 3.41 in prerequisite courses, which is slightly higher than a B+ average, wound up with a grade in their initial anatomy course of a C+, which is a GPA of 2.67 or lower. Students are required to hold an average of 2.7 to persist in the program and to graduate. A C+ then would put a person lower than the minimum requirement to continue in the program, even if just by a little bit, which is not the way you want to start out. This outcome was predicted with 67% accuracy, so it proved to be accurate for about 2 out of 3 people. Among students in the occupational therapy program, the same was true at an even higher rate. Students with a cumulative GPA of a 3.5 in prerequisite courses, which is right between a B+ and an A- average, have a 75% chance of ending up with a grade of C+ or lower in the class. So this outcome demonstrated to hold true for about 3 out of 4 people. As I alluded to earlier, the data points toward the higher level of expectation that you face as graduate students, though you shouldn't take the data to signify that the material is too difficult. For one thing, the students included in that data set had not attended a session such as this, which hopefully would have encouraged more of them to put more preparation and effort into their studies, including right from the outset. The findings of that research were very much part of what led to the production of this presentation, as well as our support resources. Furthermore, for those of you in the PT program, the curriculum has recently been adjusted so that anatomy is no longer presented as a standalone class, but is instead weaved into your Integrated Foundations of Sciences, or IFS 1 and 2 classes. And finally, the fact that students excel in the prerequisite courses makes sense. Students do well in those areas because they have an aptitude for the material. That is certainly part of why and how you all ended up here studying in these fields. So the significance of this finding is not that the material has become more or too difficult. You all have demonstrated the aptitude needed to learn the material. The significance is that you would do well to begin fully engaging with this material at the very outset of your program. And in many cases, it is probably a good idea to review the materials you are expected to know before day one. Of course, as described in the earlier learning outcomes, a primary purpose of this presentation is to provide you with a guide of what you should already know, as well as provide you with resources that will allow you to review these topics before your classes begin. So with that said, let's take a look at the topics your anatomy faculty have expressed that you should be familiar with when you arrive on your first day of class. Here's a simple list of the topics and concepts you should already be familiar with when you arrive on your first day of class. They include anatomical position, cardinal planes and axes of motion, tissue, muscles, including origin, proximal attachment, insertion, distal attachment, innervation by peripheral nerve, spinal nerve root level, and action, that is, what do muscles do, bones, including bony landmarks and muscular attachments, and nerves, including structure and basic function. Now that all may seem like a lot, but at this point, don't worry about memorization. Where you need to be is familiar with all of these topics. Review the materials. That way, when you touch on the topics in application in your classes, you'll be all that much more prepared to succeed. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have time to go over all of these topics in the span of this presentation, and I'm not the person that would be most appropriate to do so. Your faculty will be the people who will provide you that level of support. However, what we can do is take a look at each topic and where you can follow up to familiarize yourself with or to review the information. Let's begin with cardinal planes and axes of motion. Physiopedia is a charity organization based in the United Kingdom. Their purpose, as described on their site, is to provide an evidence-based and continually updated knowledge resource that's free for anyone to access. I've got the page pulled up here so we can take a quick look. And here's what the site looks like. Contains a lot of information, including, as mentioned, cardinal planes and axes of movement. It's a nice site for the type of review that's recommended before you begin your classes. It has been approved by members of the faculty. And this slide touches on the key concepts that you should be familiar with. Of course, you can visit the site linked on the slide for more detail. For now, I'll just mention the cardinal planes and axes of motion. They include the sagittal plane, aka the longitudinal plane, the frontal plane, or the coronal plane, and the transverse plane, which is also known as the axial plane or cross-section. You want to make sure that you know what those things mean and refer to. On the topics of axes, an axis is a straight line around which an object rotates. Movement at the joint takes place in a plane about an axis. There are 3 axes of rotation. The sagittal axis passes horizontally from posterior to anterior and is formed by the intersection of the sagittal and transverse planes. The frontal axis passes horizontally from left to right and is formed by the intersection of the frontal and transverse planes, where the vertical axis passes vertically from inferior to superior and is formed by the intersection of the sagittal and frontal planes. You should also review and make sure you are familiar with directional terminology, some of which I've already mentioned, as indicated in the slide. A brief description of these terms is as follows. Superior means above another structure or closer to the head. Inferior means below another structure or closer to the feet. An example is that the clavicle is superior to the sternum. Medial means closer to the middle or center of the body, where lateral means farther from the middle or center of the body. An example is that the chest is medial to the arm. Proximal and distal are terms used with a point of reference or in structures considered to have a beginning and an end. Proximal means closer to the point of reference or origin of the structure. Distal means farther away from the point of reference or origin of the structure. Some examples: the proximal end of the femur is the hip joint. The elbow is distal to the shoulder. So if you're not familiar with those terms, go to that page and make sure that you have a working knowledge and familiarity with those topics. The Physiopedia site provides a nice introductory description of cardinal planes and axes of movement, but there are many other materials that you might find useful as well. Here I want to let you know about the robust anatomy resources housed in the USAHS library. These resources will support you as you prepare for and progress through your anatomy courses. Your access to these resources through the library is continuous, so you will likely benefit from familiarizing yourself with these resources so that you can revisit them as you move through your program. These are the resources linked throughout the remainder of the presentation, so I wanted to be sure to include the links and introduce you about their availability. You can also access these resources directly by visiting the USAHS library at https://library.usa.edu/anatomy. Let's take a quick look at that page. So here we are in the library's webpage, as you can see on the anatomy site, and these are the resources mentioned: the Ackland's Video Atlas of Human Anatomy and the visual guides, Understanding the Human Body. We'll jump into both of those quickly. This is a look at the first of those, the Ackland's Video Atlas, which includes several volumes on different topics. They also have exams that you can take, pretty robust exams. You may not need that level of working knowledge to start your courses, but you will want to be familiar with the topics introduced in this presentation. And then we've got the visual guides, Understanding the Human Body, which is a Credo reference resource and can be accessed through the table of contents. Just going back to that anatomy page, you can also see the dissection series where there are different areas included. According to your faculty, the general content in anatomy can be somewhat predictable. You want to be familiar with organ systems and structures at the tissue level. It's helpful to be familiar with tissue and gross organ structure as well as organ system function. The next several slides include links to videos included in the library's video series, the visual guides, Understanding the Human Body, which is one of the pages we just went to. As we saw on that landing page, it includes a list of videos included in their contents. Here we can see the link to the video titled Body Tissues, which is a short video, about 1.5 minutes, that you can use as a refresher on the topic. It's worth noting that many of the videos listed are short, but I shall also add that just as there is a lot of information to cover in anatomy, there are a lot of videos. So I've included the links on some of the primary topics you ought to revisit before you begin in your classes, though it might be important to remind everyone to be active in watching these videos. And what I mean by that is to avoid just putting them on while you're distracted or not able to completely focus on them. Turn off your phones, turn off any other notifications. Make sure that you're actively viewing the videos. There's probably too much to memorize, but at this point you might consider your review as a refresher. Just make sure you're familiar with everything covered. You'll have opportunities to more completely engage with these topics as you move through the term, but that process and eventual memorization will be much easier if you take the time to engage in this recommended review before your classes begin. Here we are back at the visual guides page, and then scrolling down through that table of contents, you can see that body tissues topic that was linked. And the visual guides also includes additional videos under blood circulation and respiration and nutrition that introduce organs and organ systems like the heart, stomach, intestines, liver, pancreas, and gallbladder. These specific functions will be covered in anatomy. This slide contains direct links to some of the videos housed on the topics of bones, muscles, and nerves. They include bone structure, bone growth, skeleton, and the joints. Under muscles, we have the muscles and muscle tissues. And under nerves, we see the nervous system, the nerves, the central nervous system, the cerebrum, the neurons, and the motor function of the nervous system. Another university-provided resource that grants you with the opportunity to revisit anatomy is Ackland's Video Atlas of Human Anatomy. Ackland's Video Atlas teaches a lot of valuable information about the body using cadavers. Please be advised that you may need a bit of mental preparation before viewing images of cadavers. The atlas is broken into 5 sections, each with subsections complete with several 3 to 5 minute videos reviewing the components of each. The 5 sections appear in this slide. Again, there's a lot of information in these slides, just as there's a lot of information that you'll need to learn to succeed as a clinician. You can access the video atlas with this link, or you can navigate there directly through the library. Let's take another look at the site. Review as many as you are able before your classes begin. At this point, you're refreshing your knowledge as preparation for your classes. Again, watch the videos, but do so in an active learning state. Simply pressing play and sitting there while they scroll by will not do the trick. But don't go overboard either at this point. There's a lot of videos. Try to be methodical about your review. Watch the ones that you know you're less familiar with, or if it's been a while, watch as many as you're able. At a minimum, it's probably a good idea to watch the broad overview of each section. You might try to access the syllabus for your introductory classes to see where you'll be starting and review those areas first. Let's go into the upper extremity just to get a sense of what this page looks like. And there I open up the shoulder and you can see there's a number of videos in there. Now, some faculty have identified the upper extremity as a subject area that's particularly difficult, likely because it has so much content, particularly the elbow, wrist, and hands. And then we have all the other volumes as well, the lower extremity, the trunk, the head and the neck, and the internal organs. I've included some links and ideas in this slide to where you can access additional information from the teams listed, as well as information about upcoming and continuous support that can help you move through your programs. The first of these is your faculty office hours. These learning opportunities are incredibly valuable. Be sure to know when your instructor holds office hours and be sure to attend so that you can ask questions about topics that you have questions about. Next, as promised, is a link to where you can find these slides, which is among our course-based review materials in the MyUSA portal. Here's the navigational path. If you go the direct route through MyUSA, you'll find academic support, which goes into tutoring, and then course-based review materials. Now, these links on this slide, you have to be logged into the MyUSA portal in order to get to those materials. Otherwise, you'll get a you don't have permissions notification. So make sure to log into the MyUSA portal and you can navigate directly, or you can then click on the links. And here we are having moved directly to that page with, as promised, the slides and video. Now again, just to show from the front, if you're in the home page when you log into the portal, you can get into the academic support area, and that's where you can find the various resources. We're within tutoring right now, and that content-based review materials, that was the page we were just on. Another one is this active learning resources page. This has materials that you can use to develop quizzes for yourself if you like. Notes grids if you want to have a resource to start with. These are just meant to be useful for you, so don't feel like you need to do all of them. Just use the ones that you find beneficial. Check out the page and see if there's anything in there that seems of interest. We also have the Skills for Success page here. Now, Skills for Success is a presentation series to help students acclimate to life at graduate level expectations that many of you will be required to take, and hopefully all of you will participate in. Your academic support team at USAHS is always looking for ways to improve how we provide support for our students. And something that we came to recognize is that there were a number of resources that were introduced and offered during students' orientations that, while likely beneficial, were not timely in their presentation. By the time many students would benefit from bits of information presented at these opportunities, they may not recall the strategies that were introduced. Also, it's just a lot of information to be going over at one time. We've also learned that while an introduction to many of these topics and concepts and strategies is helpful, students further benefit by receiving support that's a bit more in depth and offered at a point that fits into their progress through the first term. Another aspect that we've recognized is that learning all of these strategies that make for the most successful approaches to graduate school takes time. There's a lot to think about. And so we've prepared materials and presentations that are designed in a manner that should allow you to improve your academic habits in gradual, beneficial, and applicable ways. So you'll be hearing more from me via email about the Skills for Success presentation series. Be on the lookout for those messages. You can also keep an eye out for iLearn presentations, which can be found in that site's hub, linked here, the Innovation Learning Excellence and Academic Resources Network. Our supplemental instruction program is based on the International Center for Supplemental Instruction model, which has decades of data to support its effectiveness. SI is an approach to learning that supports students toward academic success by integrating what to learn with how to learn. SI is often implemented in high-risk courses in consultation with academic staff and is supported and evaluated by a trained supervisor. SI is provided for Doctor of Physical Therapy students enrolled in Integrated Foundations in Sciences, or IFS 1 and 2. Content tutoring is provided for students in the Occupational Therapy program, where there is content tutoring offerings for anatomy applied in occupation. So the initial offerings where anatomy is concerned is a little bit different between the two programs, just something to be aware of. And you can find information about those as well in the tutoring services pages in the MyUSA portal. Here we are at the sort of the landing page, which is the tutoring and supplemental learning area. And this is where you can find information about group peer tutoring and sign up for that. You may want to sign up for your courses involving anatomy right from the outset. And then we also see the link there for the supplemental instruction, which again, if you're in the PT program, that's where you'll want to go for support in the IFS courses. This slide contains links to additional information from your academic support team, as well as a bit of information about these groups. Hopefully you've been hearing about these groups during your orientation and with other events, but the links here can take you to those groups' pages, which include more information. And with that, we've reached the end of this presentation. Again, best wishes to you as you visit the materials you'll need to succeed in anatomy and beyond, and as you embark on your next academic journey. Thank you.